Hello everyone, this is the Cajun Gaming Guild, and today we are going to be showing you, or I will be showing you, an interactive menu that I've created here. Basically with the last three to four, 2 to 3, I can't even remember exactly how many videos I've made on the different things that I've showed you about numbers, tool tips, and menus, pop-ups, all that stuff. You're going to learn a little bit new few new things in this, but it shouldn't be too bad. Hopefully you'll understand it. I will not be doing this one from scratch, like from start to finish, creating all the graphics and all the code. It's just because it would take way too long, and I don't really want to take 2, 3 hours of your life away. So I'm just going to basically show you how it works. I will go over my code really, really quickly, okay? And hopefully it helps you, okay? So I have it set up so that when my green flag is clicked, everything's going to hide. And what I did was I'm going to set my C check to 0. And if you watched my XY Finder video, you'll understand how this works. It's basically a light switch, a toggle that I've created. So anytime I press the C key, it's going to check to see whether this toggle is off. And if it is off, it wants to turn it on. It'll just turn it on. But if it's already on, then it'll just turn it off. So that means it'll be fluid-like. So as you can see, as I push my C button, my menu and everything on it comes on and off. All right, that's all that does. So it has to check to see that it's going to set it to 0 when I click the green flag, because I want it to be off when I hit the green flag. I don't want it on. In a game, if you have a menu that pops up, you don't want it on when you start the game. You want it on when the person presses the I key for inventory or C for character or whatever you plan on using as a key. Then I just want it to hide. So that's just a backup in case this fails because I did an error in my code. Forever though, I want if this is on. So if it's ever on, I want you to go to this location, this specific menu box, and I want you to go to the back layer and show. Not the front layer, the back layer. I want everything else to be on top of this menu background, the big blue square here, okay, with the black outline. I want everything to be on top of this. I don't want anything to be behind it ever, except for what in the game is supposed to be behind it, all right? So you might have to adjust that based on the other graphics you have, but for this tutorial, this works just fine for me. All right, then you're going to show yourself, and if C check is off, well, again, you're going to hide. So, because I don't want to see that. So in a nutshell, that's the code. You can pause it, copy everything I've done there. If that's what you'd like to do, that's fine with me. All right. Next, we're going to go to the tooltip. All right. So now, as I hover over the numbers and all this stuff, no tooltips because you don't really, it's pretty straightforward. That is the stat value of strength. Okay. But what does strength do? So if you hover over the word strength, well, it increases your weapon damage. Dexterity increases critical strike chance. Okay. Increases max mana, increases spell damage, increases max hit points. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Increases loot rarity. So I did do a video on tooltips. If you need to learn how to do this, you can go watch that. And I will again explain it really quickly here, how this works, okay? Okay, so let's go over this right quickly here so I can tell you how this works. So when the green flag is clicked, it's going to set stat check to 0. So what this variable that I created does is it's going to tell my program which stat I'm trying to highlight, okay? So the first one, because it's in the first position, it's pretty simple. It's stat number 1, stat check number 1, and number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Okay, so if you go down my list, you'll see that each one of these will set the stat check to the number that it corresponds to. So it's either going to be 1 to 6. And what that does is it's going to switch the costume to stat check. So I want this to be strength. I want this to be dexterity. I want this to be wisdom. All right. And what I mean by this is the actual tooltip. I can't really point to the tooltip because it's following my mouse around. I'm sorry about that. But what it's doing is it's switching the costume of my tooltip to match what it's hovering over. So if it's the, let's say this luck one, well, if you go down here, it's going to switch it to costume number 6. All right, stat check 6, so it's going to change it to the costume number 6. And if you go in my costumes, number 6 is the one for rarity. All right, which is the luck one. All right, and that's how that works. So next after that, I'm just scrolling right up back to the top. You go to your mouse pointer, okay, and if you watch my other video, you'll understand how that works. Then I want you to change the X value of that graphic because I don't want it right in the middle of my pointer because that's what would happen if you left it there. I want it to be offset a little bit so that it's down bottom right of my mouse cursor a bit, but that you can, so you can still see the word that I'm hovering over pretty good. I could have ghosted this little screen a little bit, but I felt like I didn't want to for this one because I didn't want to see the black letters underneath of it too, because then it gets a little harder to read. So it depends on when you want to use that. Then at the end of all this, you want it to just show. It's pretty simple. So if it's not doing any of this right here, so if it's not in between, so I guess I could explain this too, just in case you didn't watch that video. So if my mouse X position, so this side of my area here is bigger than minus 157, which it has to be for this to turn on. So right here is smaller than minus 157. This is bigger. And as long as it's between that point and this point over here, which is probably plus 6, and you'll notice I have it stretched out. The reason I did that is because I matched it up with intelligence. Okay, I matched it up so that all of these will work. You'll still be able to figure out that it's dexterity. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure that out, but I just stretched it out so that they would all be the same. Okay, you can change it manually, each one, like instead of mouse X being smaller than 6, I could have just shrunk it down to this and be like minus 22 or whatever that would be right there. All right, so and then it's going to also check for the bottom and the top, which is your Y value. So as long as it's bigger than 90, which would be roughly here somewhere, and smaller than 107, which would be the top. Well, if it's in this square, this rectangular area right here, okay, if my mouse is ever in here, and the menu is open, so when the menu's closed, there's no tooltip. You have to make sure you put this there as well, because if you don't, and your mouse is in this area, it's still gonna, the tooltip's gonna come on. The game has to know every single step, okay? Then it'll turn on. If it goes to this area, well, it's still going to show a tooltip, but now it's going to switch it to stat number 2, etc., etc. That's what I explained a little bit earlier. Okay? If it's not in any of these things, well, what else does it do? It's just going to hide. So if it's over here out of this box range, even though the menu's open, it's just going to hide. That's what you want it to do. Okay? And that's what this does as well. This is the one for the menu open. This is the one just in case your menu's closed. Because if you don't have this in here and you shut down your menu, your tooltip stays, all right? And it doesn't go away. So make sure that you have that in there as well. All right, everything that I put is important. You have to do every step. It has to know when to hide and when to show. Okay, next we're going to go to our stats numbers folder. And if you watch my tutorial on my number counters, all right, I used a digit for each number that you see here, all right? And it was not by clones. I did not use clones for that video. And I told you that, you know, if you're making small numbers, it's definitely a bonus to use that. And I should have probably done the same here, but I wanted to show you, I also told you guys I would make a video on how to make cloned numbers. And well, I decided I was just going to do those cloned numbers here so you can see how clones work. All right, so this might take a little bit more time to explain to you, but hopefully we can get through it in a few minutes, okay? So first we're going to deal with the strength digit, all right? So the strength digit I created all on my own. If you watch that other video, you'll understand how to create your own numbers, okay? And then what I did was, well, when green flag is clicked, I just want you to hide. I don't want to see you anywhere on this screen, because if you don't do this and you start throwing around clones, well, you might see 3 numbers where you only wanted to see 2 because your original sprite is going to show. And you want that to hide. You don't need to show your original sprite. You only need to show the clones. That's how this is going to work, okay? So when the C key is pressed, so when my menu opens, I want you to do something. I want you to check to see if the menu was closed before the when it's pressed, because when it's pressed, it's going to actually change this to 1. All right. So as long as this is like this, it will work just fine. You want to make sure that the menu was closed when the menu was pressed, or when the C key was pressed. Then I want you to set clone number to 1. And what that does is you're going to set, each clone is going to have its own value. All right. So when you make this variable, this clone variable, clone number, if I click on this here, you'll see that it says stat numbers, / strength numbers, clone number. Okay, that might be a little confusing to you, all right? But what that's telling you is this file is in this folder, all right? All right, and this is the file. The file is strength numbers clone number. Why does it sound so confusing? Well, because when I made this variable, I made it for this sprite only, not global sprite that anything can use. Because when you create clones and you give them each an ID, they have to have their own variables set to that specific ID. If you make it a global ID and you change it on one clone, it's going to change it on all your clones, which is not going to work for numbers, because one of the numbers has to be a 7. One of the numbers has to be a 1. So if all the clones are just copying the original clone, well, they're all going to be 1s, or they're all going to be 7s, or they're all going to be 3s, or whatever number you have there. So that will not work. You have to have a for this sprite only variable set for your clone IDs. All right. So I'm going to set my clone ID to 1 to start off my clones. The first one's going to be 1. I want that to go to a specific location, which is roughly here somewhere, okay? And I want it to repeat 2 times, because I do not plan on having more than 2 digits in my stats. I doubt it'll even get to 30, all right? Maybe 40, depends on your game. You might have strength that gets up into the 10,000s. That's up to you. For how many ever numbers you have, all you got to do is change the amount here. If you have 5 digits, you put 5 there, and it will work no matter what. All right. The only thing is, it's going to push your numbers to the right. So in saying that, if I had 170, the 0 would be here. All right, so you have to remember that. You could change the orientation of which way your digits spread, but for this video, I have my digits going to the right, okay, because it's going to work for me. I'm not going to have more than 2 digits, so this is going to be just fine for me. Next, when I repeat myself, so the purpose of this repeating process is I need to make 2 clones, okay? It's going to create a clone right away with the clone ID 1. It's going to change the position of the next clone, because this clone is being created now. Anything that happens after this point goes to the future clone. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you, but because it happens after the creation of the initial clone here, it's going to go through this process so that the next time it creates a clone, this stuff would have already happened. So it's going to change the position over a little bit, which is where the 7 is. And then it's going to change the clone ID by 1, making it 2. So this 7 would be clone number 2, and the 1 would be clone number 1. All right. Now, if this C check here is not 0, meaning, if it's 1, for instance, because if it's 0, then I can open up my menu. But if it's 1, that means the menu's open. And what's going to happen when that happens? Well, it's going to close down my menu. I want it to stop everything and shut it down, because clones will go on forever. If I did not put this here, and actually I probably can show you, if I didn't put this here, and I push the C button, all right, what happens? My clones are still showing because clones will stay forever. And that's why you have a clone counter. And if you keep doing this, look, my number keeps going up and up. And bam, 300, my game is broke now. It no longer works. All right? So you have to know that. You have to be able to delete, figure out and delete sprites. Sometimes you actually have to specify which sprites. So if you have creatures that are cloned that you have to destroy and you're clicking on one and you destroy it, well, you don't want all of your clones to disappear. You just want that specific one. So you could specify if clone number is equal to, right? Then I want you to destroy it. All right. And then that way there just specifies that one clone with the clone ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, whatever. And then it destroys, it deletes that clone. All right. So this takes care of my clones getting too high. So you'll notice I have 26 clones right now. And when I shut it down, they're gone. They delete. This is the way you're going to save your life in this game, because if it didn't delete those clones, the next time you load, it's going to multiply everything by 2. Then it's going to take that number and multiply it by 2. Then it's going to, and by that point, it's already at 300. All right, it doesn't take long whatsoever to get to that point. So you have to be very careful with clones. So now, when this shoots off, create clone of myself, the first repeat, let's say, it's going to put this into a forever loop, all right? And what this wants to do is check something here. It wants to check to see if the length of strength is equal to clone number, or if the length of strength is larger than clone number. And if it is, then it wants to do this. And I just blew your mind if you're new to Scratch. You had no idea what I just said there probably. You're confused. You're probably getting a little angry at me right now. And that's okay, because I'm going to explain it. So what this means, if you've watched previous videos, if not, I'm going to explain it again right now. The length of strength is this. If we click on my variable called strength, it is 2 digits long. It's a 1 and a 7, 2 separate digits. Meaning the length, this was a word that was called apple, because that's just an example that's in the game. It's 5 letters long, all right? So the length of apple would be 5. Well, the length of strength is 2. So what this is doing basically is telling my code how many numbers do I need to pop out here, all right? So what's going to happen here is the length of strength is going to be 2, okay? Because I set it right at the start of the game to be 17. It's going to be 17 strength. So because the length of 17 is, the length of strength is 2, it's 2 digits long, it's not equal to clone. So this will show up as a false statement. You can see that when you click on it. It's not working. But I do have an or statement here. So as long as one or the other happens, we are good to go. Because the length of strength is, well, not right at the moment, is not higher than, because this updates and now it's looking for the clone number 3. Even though we do not have a third clone, it just continues on because of the way that I set up my code. I should explain that. So after the second clone was created, it still changes X by 14 and it still changes the clone number by 1, making it 3. But it does not create another clone. So I don't have a third clone, but because clone number is showing 3, if I try and test this, it's going to give me a false reading. But this updates for each and every clone. So the first time this went through, the length of strength was 2, which did not equal clone number 1, because it would have been the first clone. But the length of strength 2 was definitely bigger than clone number 1, so this would have fired off my code. It would have switched my costume to the letter number 1, because it would have been the first clone of strength, and the letter number 1 of strength is a 1. It's right here. So that's why it went to the front layer, it showed my number 1 right here, and it's just going to stay there until I delete it or hide it. And actually hiding it doesn't work, you pretty much got to delete it. All right, so it will stay there. Then it's going to go through the loop again, through this repeat cycle. It's going to be, this time, length of strength is still going to be 2, it's never changed. and then it's going to see if it's equal to clone number 2, which it is. So right away, it's going to fire off. It does not have to go here and check. It is equal to 2, and it's going to then switch the letter of clone number 2, which is 7, of strength, all right? Clone number 2, so letter number 2, because that's what the clone number would be, of strength, which is the 7, and it's going to go to the front layer and place it there, which is, what did I put, 14 more pixels to the right of 1. All right, that's how I have it set up, because it moved over a little bit. Paste it there, and then it's going to be done. All right, that's my code in a nutshell. If there was a third digit, so let's just show you what I mean by that. If I repeated this one more time, I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm just going to push C to reset everything. You'll notice nothing else new happened, did it? Clone number went up by another one, but no other digits went up. Well, why is that? Well, because if it gets to here, if length of strength is 2, does that equal the clone number? No, it does not, because clone number now would have been 3. This is the third round, it would have been 3, so it does not equal that. And the length of strength is not bigger than clone number, because again, 2 is not bigger than 3. So therefore, it will not show the third number, even though I don't have one. But this is where, if you needed to make that number bigger, it would work. Let's say I did have a third number, and I'll even show you that. Let's just put it to 100 here. Bam, my number appears. Yeah, just like that. And you can see my zeros are a little bit close together. So I would probably have to adjust this number just a hair. And that's up to you to do. But for 2 digits, it looks fine. So I'm not going to bother. And I don't plan on getting to 3 digits. So I'm just going to leave it how it is. Okay. But if you wanted to add more numbers, it's that simple. You're just going to change this repeat to how many ever digits you plan on using. Make sure you adjust the X value accordingly, and it will automatically update based on this little equation that I've put into place. It works perfectly, all right? So in saying that, we're just going to get rid of this bar, the slider bar, and reset everything because I want it back to 17. Normal read. Okay. So I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to hide this now. Next, we are going to go to, sorry, I guess I better finish off. So every number that I've done here is programmed the exact same way as the strength. Okay, they all do the exact same thing. The only thing is they have to hit up the variable that they're representing. Okay, they have to hit up the intelligence. If they're under intelligence, it's wisdom for wisdom, dexterity for dexterity. So that way their numbers that change are going to be equivalent to the variable that you have for these. Where did I set these up? Well, I showed you guys in another video that it's good practice for me. What I do is in this code tools folder that I created, I have my XY finder tool because it's handy as old heck, and I needed it big time for this in order to make these tooltips work. I needed it for this button right here. Okay, so I use that. Good handy little tool. If you're not sure how to use it, you can go watch another one of my videos. I believe now Scratch has extensions that actually will show your XY values up here. I've never actually used it because I don't have to. I already have my own little tool that works just fine. So right here, the main code is what I talked about in another video. Instead of searching through all my stuff, finding, okay, where did I reset my strength, or where did I set my strength at? Oh, it's probably in the strength, but then you're digging all over the place trying to find strength. Where the heck did I put strength? And there's a million numbers in this folder, okay? So I put everything on one file called the main code. This main code does not have a graphic. It does not have a costume. It's just a blank costume, but it has code on it, and you're allowed to do this. So when my green flag is clicked, I've set everything that I want to set right here, okay? Everything that I'm using in this small little tutorial is right here. My strength, my dex, my wisdom, it's all the same as what you see up here. That's where I set it. All right, so in saying that, we'll go just right here quickly to the extra stat points, which are 6. So as you level up, you gain stat points, let's say, in your game. Well, these are the stat points that I have not spent yet. Well, I like spending stat points. So how do we do that? Well, pretty straightforward. We have a bunch of pluses and minuses here. So you can add numbers to your current stats, okay? And you can take them away if you don't like them. But like most games, when you shut down the screen, most games will pop up a screen and say, are you sure you want to save these changes or keep the stats how you put them? And you'll click yes, and it'll save it. I don't have that popping up. I could, but for the sake of time, I didn't do it on this video. You can do that though. It's not all that much more work and not all that more difficult to do. But you can do that if you want to put that in. But what I did do is, you can never, so since strength is my 17, or 17 currently, I can increase it as much as I want, up to 6 points, and it will not allow me to increase it anymore. It will not allow me to add points to anywhere else because I only had 6. And I cannot take out those points somewhere else, though. I did block that. You have to do your programming properly, so that now, though, I can still take the 6 points back out of strength that I added, but it'll never let me go below the original value. I'm going to show you how I coded that, though, in a second. Now that I have the 6 points back, I can put them somewhere else, okay? So I put 1 in each place. Oh, I didn't want strength. I wanted to. Oh, no, I still don't like that. And then you can do that as much as you want. But as soon as you shut down that window, it's saved. I don't have the warning that pops up for this because it's just an example. It's not the actual game. If this was an actual game that I was creating, I probably would do that just because it sucks to make a mistake and be like, crap, I put it in the wrong area, blah, 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 blah. So if I hit C now and push it, you'll see that I have no more stat points. I can no longer subtract or plus my buttons. Okay, so I'm going to reset again just so we can redo this again. Another thing that I implemented was when you click on a button, it lights up for a second so you know you actually clicked it. All right, I'll show you how to do that as well in a moment. One thing that was a bug that I found was, I guess we'll just go over it. Let's just do that. I'm going to shut this down. We're going to go to our sprites. A few bugs that I want to show you that I had to squish were this. So when I open the menu, you're going to notice something. My negative symbols appear instantly. My pluses take a few seconds, and I'll show you again. See, the plus symbols are way slower than the negative symbols. Well, why is that? Because Scratch can update things instantly without screen refresh if you create your own blocks, okay? But you have to be careful using these blocks because if you put a forever loop in them, they will destroy you. They will basically shut your game down. They'll lag you out so bad, it's crazy. And all you have to do is just try this yourself and you'll know exactly what I mean. You may have already done this and seen what I mean. So, but for this, since when I start as a clone here, nothing's going to happen that's going to be super dangerous. See? Because I'm making my clone here. It's not in a forever loop here. And when I create my clone, all it's doing is repeating 6 times. So it's not a forever loop. It can do it instantly. So my negative symbol here is actually bam, basically as fast as your eyes can see it, it's loading up. But my plus symbols, I took that code out, okay, which should go here, okay. So I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this. Oh, and this goes here. That's right. All right, sorry. So I wanted to make sure that it looked good for you guys. And right now you'll see it's working perfectly again. This loads up as quickly as the menu loads up. And because I did not do that with these numbers, but because there's only 2, you can't really tell. I did not do this for the numbers. They are not screen refreshed instantly. They are loading one after the other, but it's like a 0.1 of a second. So you can't really notice it. So I didn't bother fixing that one. All right. It's not a big deal. But if you had 10 digits, you would have to do the same thing. You just have to create your own block. It's very simple to do. You go down here, you make a block. All I typed in was clones or whatever. You could put blah and make sure you click this run without screen refresh. And then now that is the hat block. You put the code that you want to run there. Okay, so I just put my repeat create clone of myself in there. And then you have to drag out what's going to fire that off where it's supposed to be. So normally this code would have been there. So all I did was drag it, put it there, and put the firing off block inside the position that that was at. And now it runs without screen refresh. Instant fix, okay? And it will help you out in your games if you remember that little trick, okay? So, yeah. So another bug that I had to squish was if you clicked on this button too quickly, all right? So let me just show you, I guess. That would be the best way to do this. I'm just going to take it out of here. I'm just going to take this stuff out for a moment. Take this and set it up here. I don't want to throw it away because I'm going to need it in a second. So you'll notice I put this this little check in. It's called a click check, all right? And if you're making clicker games, you're going to want to know this. Because what happens if you have a clicker game that has a timer bar, for instance? So you're waiting for a timer to fill up before you actually collect whatever you clicked on. Some people have insta clicks where as fast as you can click, you can get the stuff. But other people make games where you click on something, you'll see a bar fill up, and bam, you get the item when the bar is done being filled up. It disappears, you get the whatever you were clicking on, and away you go. You can click on it again. The problem with that is this. Because you are waiting for a time, so in your code, you're going to see there's time. There's time in there usually for your bar to fill up. And if you click on it again, what's going to happen is it's going to start over again immediately. It will interrupt your bar, causing an error, and you'll see it 99% of the time. You're going to see the interruption. And it basically screws up your code because it's kind of lost right now. It doesn't know where it's at because you've clicked too quickly, okay? So what I've done was, and I'm just going to show you right quickly. So we're going to reset. I'm going to show you. So right here, if I click on it slowly, because it's within the 0.5 seconds, you're going to be okay. It's going to work just fine, okay? And if I click as fast as I want, and I'll show you with the negative, because the negative's still set up properly, I can click as fast as I want with the negative. Bam, it's going to go down every time. It's going to work fine. But if I do that with the plus now, because I don't have something to slow it down or to stop it, watch. Oh, I'm making myself out to be a liar. So I'm going to just change this a little bit because bars are usually 1 or more seconds. Okay, I want to make sure you guys understand this. So you'll see, bam, that worked fine. So you'll see that my brightness effect kept going up because I was interrupting the process and not allowing it to go back down. Okay, my strength only went up 1 point. I only lost 1 stat point, but I clicked on it 5 times. All right, it should have went up 5 points, but it didn't because I caused an error. So the easiest way to fix that is I'm going to change this back down to 0.5. 0.05 is this. You're going to basically put a gateway. So at the start, when this sprite is clicked, it's going to check something. If my click check is 0, meaning I have not clicked on the graphic yet, then we're allowed to click on it. Okay, it's going to allow me, it's going to open the gate for me to click on this graphic now. Okay, then it's going to go to the next set of code. So it's going to go through this code, which is extra is bigger than 0. Why did I put this here? Well, that's because if my extra stat points are 0, I can't spend any. So I don't want to be able to click on this button. If I don't have any to spend, I do not want to be able to click on this button. So that is another gateway. It's another check. If it failed any of this, it's not going to do any of this. It will not allow you to click on it. So if my click check menu is open, which it is, if my, sorry, not click check, C check menu is open, that's by pressing the C button. If my click check is 0, meaning I have not started to click on this graphic yet. If my extra points are bigger than 0, which they are, I have stat points to spend, then it's going to allow me to do this. But again, if I did not put this here, all right, then I would be able to just click on this as quick as I can. But it's still not fixed because it's still going to be 0. right? I never changed them. I just took out this code here now. But so now you have to implement that when you finally start clicking on it, you want to change the click check here now to 1, meaning that you are clicking on it for the length of all the time that you have waited in here. So right now I'm only waiting 0.5 of a second. If I was a faster clicker, I probably could have caused that error I was telling you earlier. When I changed it to 1 second, it was easy to mess it up. So you might have a bar that's 5 seconds, right? So you want to make sure that this is locked by this for those 5 seconds. When the 5 seconds is up, all right, it'll continue running your code how it is. You're going to change strength by 1. You're going to change the extra stat point value by -1. So it's going to come down. You're doing your math. Then at the very end of all that, then you want to unlock the button again so that somebody can re-click on that. All right. That's when you want it to unclick. So again, now if I click on it, I can click on it as fast as I want and it will work. All right. So that's just a little trick that I've learned over the years to basically lock and unlock clicking so that you do not interrupt your code and cause an error. And trust me, if you're having a problem with a clicker game, I can almost guarantee you that this is exactly what the problem is. It's you haven't set up a lock mode so that you can't click as quickly. Now, if I would have taken out this 0.105 seconds in here, then I wouldn't have seen the brightness change. You wouldn't see it. It just wouldn't even appear. It's that fast, okay? But at the same time, it wouldn't interrupt your code. You could click on it as quick as you want because it's not waiting. All right. And so just know that. All right. That's something for you to know and understand. All right, guys. So I'm just going to reiterate what we were talking about earlier about the stat points. Okay. So again, if you push the C button, I have it set up here with the extra. It will not get by this area unless you have enough points. Okay, so push the C button. We have 6, all right, to start. And this is how it's going to check. It's not going to let me get by here if you don't have enough stat points to spend. I have not covered the negatives yet, though, because in the negatives, I had to set up something a little bit different here, and you're going to notice it. So instead of putting this in my main code, and I could have very well done that, I didn't want to do that. I put it where I felt I needed it, and right now I needed it in my negative symbols. Okay. So why did I do this? I have a new variable called temp strength, temp dexterity, temp wisdom, temp intelligence, temp stamina, and temp luck. The reason I did that is I want to be able to figure out what my old value was when I first opened the menu. Okay, so when I opened the menu, my strength was 17, 12, 15, 11, 14, and 8. Okay, my 6 stats were those numbers. And I want to be able to remember that so that when I change these points here in a second, if I want to subtract them, I do not want to be able to go below what the original value was, okay? What I mean by that, if I add 3 points here and 3 points here, I do not want to be able to subtract my wisdom. I need my wisdom to stay what it was when I open the menu, at least the minimum value. Where I want to be able to subtract from, though, is the ones that I already added the value to. So in order to do that, I had to create a temporary stat. Okay, so when I open my menu, the temporary strength value, and I'll show you what it looks like here. Temporary strength was 17. It was set to 17. So I can add as many points as I want to strength now. But I can never lower that value less than my temporary strength. Okay, and I set that up in my code. So when I go click on this button, it's going to not only check to see where my mouse pointer is, but it's going to check to make sure that my strength value is not bigger than my temp strength. Okay, or that it is bigger, sorry, that it is bigger. If it is bigger, then we're good. We can actually take away one of those points. If it is not bigger though, if it's equal to or less, well, it can never get to less, but if it's equal to it, it will not allow me to do the rest of the code, meaning I'll take away one of my strength points and add it back to my stat points. So in saying that, I have that set up for all of these. And then finally, when you hit the C button to close your menu, what's going to happen then, so let's just spend our points. What's going to happen then is it's going to set this, okay? It's going to set all of this back to 0 again, all right? And since we've already increased our strength, our dexterity, and blah, blah, blah by whatever we needed it to be, it's going to just stay that way permanently. So strength is going to stay at 20 from this point on, and then now when I re-enter the screen, it's going to set the temp strength to what it is now, which is 20 now. So now 20 is the new number. It can never get below that number. So if I had more stat points here, I could add to it, but I could never subtract less than the value that I currently have. And that's how you create that save point, I guess. Okay? Okay, so that's going to cover that. I do not believe, let me just quickly look over things here. Basically, you're going to do that. So again, I did talk about how the XY Finder, I used it for these. They are separate graphics, but again, instead of making one of these plus symbols for each one of these, I again used clones. All right, I used a clone for this. So how I did that was when the C key is pressed, if my menu is closed like the other ones, then you're going to set clone to 1 because the menu is going to be open when this actually fires off. You're going to set the clone to 1. You're going to go to the position that you want it to be, which is right, we're doing the pluses, it's right here. And you're going to go to Y, which is right here again. Then you're going to fire off the code. Okay, you're going to create a clone. You're going to change. This time you're not changing X. You're not going to the right. You're going down. So you're changing the Y value by -35, which puts my next box here, my next box here, my next box here, my next box here, my next box here. So it fires off 6 times. I have it repeating 6 times. Okay, and it's just going to change that clone number by 1. Then when you're clicking on the sprite, you need to make sure that you're clicking on the right box because they're all from the same sprite. All 6 of these are the same exact sprite. So when this sprite is clicked, well, which one are we talking about? Which one of the 6 are we talking about? So this is where you have to set the sprite check, okay? Not the sprite check, sorry. You have to set the values of the mouse X and the mouse Y, just like we did with this. Okay, so if mouse X is bigger than 134, which if I put my XY counter on, okay, if it's bigger than 134, then I'm in the range of the box. If it's smaller than 166, I put, right, so I'm in the range of the box. Then you do that for the Y values again. So if it's in here or in here, it means to the code that I'm talking about this one specifically. I'm not talking about this negative sign. I'm not talking about this plus symbol, which is that sprite. I'm talking about this, okay? So it works for a full thing that you just draw on and make your own boxes, or it actually works for a sprite that has been cloned 6 times. It's the same idea and it works perfectly for either. It looks like I have a lot of code, but it's not really all that confusing once you figure it out. And that's how I coded these. So now it knows as long as my mouse is over here, well, I'm talking about the second part, the dexterity part, okay? And so therefore, I'm going to put all my dexterity code here. If I'm talking about the third one, well, I'm talking about the wisdom. I'm going to change all my wisdom here. I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to do it where it's being affected at, all right? And again, it's going to look like I have a lot more code here. And I do. I have quite a bit of code here. It's not that bad though, and you can zoom out, you can mess around. Once it's coded, once the first one has been coded, all I do is right-click, duplicate, drag it here. Drop it, change these numbers a tiny bit, change this the strength that was here to dexterity, and basically everything else is the same. and then I copy it again, and then I do. It's not like you have to redo the entire code again. You're just going to duplicate, change a few things, duplicate, change a few things. So that's how that works, and it works out really well. The alternative to this big giant amount of code is, like I said in another video, you can have one sprite for each, means you'd have another 5 of these plus symbol sprites here, making more clutter. And you'd also have 5 more of these sprites, okay, causing a lot more mess, all right? So you can either see the mess here, where in a hurry, you're looking for your sprites, you want to work on your sprites, you're going to be clicking here, and you don't want to have to sift through 200 sprites. It's going to slow you down. I'm telling you right now, it's going to slow you down considerably, and you do not want to have to do that. Okay, guys? Anyway, this is going to end this little tutorial. I really do hope that you learned something today. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe button. And if you have any questions at all about Scratch, don't hesitate to put them in the comment section below, and I will try my hardest to answer them. Thanks very much, and have a good day.